Welcome to another episode of the series in which we explore every city in England region by region in order of average house price. Having previously covered the southwest and southeast, we now move our focus towards the region referred to as East of England. So whether you're interested in the property market or simply the geography and the visuals, this video has you covered. The prices quoted are of course time sensitive, but compiled from the same source at the same time. So let's dive in. Number 8. Getting us started is a city that gets a hard time on the reputation front, particularly with some of the YouTubers of a more glass half empty nature out there. I'm sure you know the type. But love it or hate it, the cheapest city in East of England is currently Peterborough. Here's why it's important not to cut any corners when opining on towns and cities. Whilst some may be happy simply to check the house price and work backwards with the predetermined conclusion that the city must be derelict, I'd like to offer a more nuanced view. This is, after all, one of the designated new towns of the post-war era. As such, its population has roughly tripled since the 1960s, so of course house prices are less likely to inflate beyond control under these conditions. Granted, it has its downsides, but considering its upsides include Peterborough Cathedral, a somewhat central location, and Queensgate Shopping Centre, complete with its numerous comfy sofas, it's hard not to stick up for this strangely maligned city. The average property in Peterborough costs just over £253,000. Number 7. The second cheapest city in the east of England again comes at odds with the natural assumptions that come with a lower average house price, because this is one of the finest cities not only in the region but in the whole country, Norwich. Aside from the obvious jokes about Alan Partridge and the pedestrianisation of Norwich city centre, this is a place about which you'll rarely hear a bad word spoken, and with sights like the 96-metre spire of Norwich Cathedral and the winding cobbled streets of Elm Hill, complete with Tudor buildings, it becomes easy to see why many have a soft spot for the city. So why is it only 7th in the region by house price? Well, the simple explanation is geographical isolation. Being the most easterly city in the country, half of Norwich is surrounded by the North Sea, broadly speaking. Norfolk, broadly speaking? Never mind. As for the other half, well, let's just say that when rail strikes occur here, they're bad news. In any case, a property in Norwich costs on average just over £287,000, which is a fraction above the national average in the UK, according to the Office for National Statistics. Number 6. Now to the youngest city in the region, although Roman enthusiasts would in fact call it the oldest city in the country, Colchester. So the county of Essex went from having no cities as recently as 2012 to having 3 cities today. Colchester is the most northerly of the 3, making it perhaps the least optimal from a London commuter perspective, but on the flip side, also perhaps the least Londonified of the Essex cities, which is to say, a far cry from the urban sprawl of Barking, Dagenham, Ilford and so forth. Besides its obvious historic interest, what with Colchester Castle being built on the site of the Temple of Claudius, just for starters, it's also located within easy reach of some of the Essex seaside towns like Clacton-on-Sea and Walton-on-the-Naze. The average property in Colchester comes in at just over £324,000. Number 5. Next is the second of Essex's 3 young cities. This one was granted city status by way of memorial to Sir David Amess, who was assassinated in October 2021. Southend-on-Sea. Amess was Member of Parliament for Southend West and a long-standing campaigner for the seaside town to gain city status. His life was cut short by a knife-wielding coward. Just 3 days later, our late Queen Elizabeth announced that city status would be granted in March of the following year. The average property in Southend-on-Sea costs just over £355,000. Number 4. And so now to one of England's smallest cities, and the only one in the region to have been an island surrounded by marshy fens prior to the 17th century, the city of Ely. Now, granted, without the presence of Ely Cathedral, this would almost certainly be a small to medium-sized town. But rules are rules. So, what does Ely have going for it? Well, aside from the cathedral that featured on the album cover of The Division Bell by Pink Floyd, it's a short train or bus ride away from Cambridge. In the other direction, the coast of North Norfolk is not too far away. And of course, a limited supply of housing affects the price in the upward direction. The average property in Ely costs just over £392,000. Number 3. Next is the third of Essex's trio of young cities, although this was the first of the three to get the upgrade back in 2012, the city of Chelmsford. This is said to be the birthplace of radio, owing to the wireless factory opened here by Marconi at the turn of the 20th century. It's also home to the only Anglican cathedral in Essex. But what else does Chelmsford have going for it? Well, its main selling point appears to be its position along the Great Eastern Main Line, with trains to central London taking just over half an hour, making it particularly handy for commuters. The average Chelmsford property costs just over £405,000. Number 2. And the second most expensive city in the east of England is home to England's second oldest university, Cambridge. With direct trains to and from London taking under an hour, or just over an hour depending on stops, Cambridge is a viable commuter base for those working in the capital. However, it stands out as an exceptional city in its own right. In addition to all the fine stone college buildings adorning the city centre, architectural highlights include St Benet's Church, whose tower dates all the way back to the Anglo-Saxon era, as well as Senate House from the 18th century. And of course the River Cam, which winds around the backs of the colleges, is a popular draw for visitors who can explore the river in style on a punting tour. On average, a property in Cambridge costs just over £608,000. Number 1. Finally, the most expensive city in the east of England region is Hertfordshire's only city, St Albans. Located just outside the M25 motorway, this is a city that's managed to avoid the architectural Londonisation of other settlements within an equal radius of central London. St Albans is a city of vast history, going back to the Romans and their original settlement here, which they called Verulamium. Its very streets saw action in not one but two battles during the Wars of the Roses of the 15th century, as did St Albans Cathedral, or St Albans Abbey as it was known at the time. All this makes for a very pleasant surprise for history-loving Londoners when they discover they can make an inexpensive day trip here via a train journey taking around 20 to 30 minutes depending on stops. As for the average property in St Albans, that comes in at just over £633,000. Thus concluding this guide to the cities of the east of England. Thanks for watching and have a great day.